I think they got like a little cheeky lawsuit.
Oh, just a little cease and desist sent over here, a little cheeky one.
As a little treat. David, have you heard the phrase, absence makes the heart grow fonder?
I have heard that phrase before, yes.
David, I'm feeling fond.
Oh. How fond do you feel?
So I feel so fond. It's been so long since we've recorded a podcast, which I presume is just like 2 weeks at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it feels like an eternity.
Yeah, used to having that pressure relieved.
I like talking about video games. There's been so many of them that I've played since 2 weeks ago. And also, like, I haven't talked to my good friend David in 2 weeks, mostly. At least, in the audio
we texted
form.
at least.
We texted, yeah. It's not like we're not friends when we're not recording this podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a business friendship only.
Strictly business. This podcast, of course, being Video Game Podtimism, the Optimist video game variety show, where two best friends talk about the wonderful world of gaming. My name is still Chase.
And my name's David.
Well, hey, I'm interested in what games you've gotten up to in the last 2 weeks. I'm just curious.
You're just curious. You just want to know what I've been poking at.
Yeah, because like just background. I've been going through the final, like, I think 10 episodes that don't have games mentioned in our like episode backlog. Yeah. And just like hearing you talk about video games got me gassed up because I was like, I don't know which ones you're going to bring this week. It's always so exciting for me. It's also been so long, David. I'm just excited about these things.
You're tripping over your own words right now with excitement.
Also, I don't know how to do this anymore. It's been 2 weeks and I have no idea what a podcast is anymore.
No, exactly. It's just like we used to do this. This used to be our regular cadence was 2 weeks when I was studying for my test.
Yeah.
So we just got to get back in the swing of things.
Possible.
I know you were. It was a mighty struggle for you back then, Chase. You were having a tough time about it.
Really had to edit myself.
I was impressed that you were able to make it that long. Yeah. You just didn't explode with Podtimism just leaking out of your ears at some point.
Screaming at people on the street. I think video games are cool and you should too. There's always something cool about at least one of them.
I know, there's always something good in any game. This is if you look hard enough and have an open heart. But yeah, I have indeed been playing video.
Could you tell me about it, please?
Yeah, I've still been playing Dark Souls 3, and that's the thing I've probably been playing the most of still.
Cool. Yeah. Where are you in it now?
Let's see. I am in the really awful, like, swampy church place.
Oh, yeah, man.
The swampy church.
Yeah.
I'm going through this game, and I was amazed at, like, how close some of the bonfires are. And right now, I am in a fucking hellscape of no bonfires and this very long strip of pretty difficult enemies I have to get through to get back to where I was.
Yeah.
It's pretty frustrating right now, but this area is weird. It's cool. I accidentally played with somebody else, which was kind of fun.
Oh, love that.
I don't know why or how it happened, but I just saw a summon sign. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. And this dude and I just kind of ran through this fucking church and just destroyed everything. It was great. It's a lot of fun, actually. He was a homie. I got very nervous because I was about to die, and I'm like, is he going to be mad if I die? And I got just way too in my own head about playing with some rando on the internet. But it was more fun than I thought it was going to be. It makes me kind of want to force you to make a Dark Souls 3 character so we can fuck around in one of these levels, because it's a very different game when you have a buddy to go through with. It really, really changes the difficulty level and also the vibe. The vibe changes.
It's really cool that they like build in like every NPC that you meet. Sometimes it's kind of a miracle whenever you're like, oh my God, there's another like just regular dude over there who's like, hello, I've been here for 3,000 years and I have this tiny little cursed dagger that I've been staring at. And like it always just seems like incredible that there's just like another person out here and not just like a horrible crab that's going to eat you or something.
It's like, all of your body parts are proportional to you and you don't want to kill me and you actually speak human words. For the most part, yes.
You might want to kill me a little bit, but at least you're keeping that in check.
You might want to kill me later.
Yeah. Fuck you, Patches.
Patches on notice.
And so it's cool that they were able to build into the actual game that if there is a truly real other human, it feels kind of like a miracle. You're like, oh my God, like a friend who isn't mean to me and is just here to like help me progress.
Yeah.
And we're going to help each other. It's pretty wild. It's a really cool part of that game that like, I do think it's kind of intimidating to get in there, but it's so nice when you find just a regular person who wants to play Dark Souls with you.
Yeah. Yeah. You have that person. And then you also have Captain Jack Sparrow, who just invaded my world. I sat around waiting for him to come fight me. I never saw him, forgot about him, kept on going in the level. And then when I was at like a very minuscule amount of health, he just came up and backstabbed me and killed me.
Oh my God.
Captain Jack Sparrow is a real bastard, apparently.
That's hilarious.
And he looked like Captain Jack Sparrow. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So there's two sides to every coin, right? In every person there are two wolves. So it was definitely all over the place with my Dark Souls 3 co-op experiences, or co-op and one PvP, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
But I'm really enjoying Dark Souls 3, and I'm kind of shocked at how different it feels than Dark Souls 1.
Yeah.
And I'm also kind of shocked by the run that Miyazaki was on of Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and then Dark Souls 3. That is quite the run there, just to go from one to the next. Damn, dude.
Yeah, no, it's shocking that they were like, he was able to work on those games one right after the other. It's like, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Insane, truly. The guy he's going to be on the Mount Rushmore of games one day. But the vibe of the game is very different than Dark Souls 1. I don't know, it feels a little bit more hopeless than Dark Souls 1.
Shockingly.
Dark Souls 1 is more vague. It's more mysterious. You're in this world, it's more open, it's more cavernous feeling. It's more a little ominous feeling, but it doesn't feel quite as hopeless and depressing as Dark Souls 3 does. There's just this pale of darkness and sadness that kind of envelops the whole game, which is very interesting compared to the first one, that they definitely are going for this vibe in this game, and they achieve it pretty well.
Yeah.
I don't know which one I like more. I think they're just both different.
Yeah,
they're both their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm in that nasty little church. I also can go into like the catacombs. That's another option to me, because I just beat the Abyss Watchers, who are a real tough one for me for a while. Really,
that was a hard boss. Yeah,
that feels like a get good boss.
Yeah.
So got through those, and now I'm guessing I'm going to be fighting some like evil clergy person in this church at some point.
No, almost certainly.
Almost certainly. So yeah, really enjoying this game. I'm enjoying being a pyromancer. I've never really dabbled with spells in any of these FromSoft games before, honestly.
Yeah.
And I decided to get a little bit out of my comfort zone this time, and I feel like I'm starting to get a good idea of how it works and like the spacing and everything. It's very different than being just a big old swingy boy.
Yeah, totally.
But it's fun. I like all the big different blasty moves I have. I like imbuing my weapon with fire. That's fun. That's cool. Definitely gets my pyromaniac energy out into a constructive and non-destructive way for me, which is great.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dark Souls 3, surprisingly enough, a very good game.
Good game. Yeah, shocking.
Shocking, truly. I also played and beat Mario 6 Golden Coins, Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins.
Took that win all the way through.
Yeah, I was traveling over the weekend and I had some spare time with my Switch, and I just blasted through this one. This is one of the few games that I had beaten all like the regular levels as a child, but I never beat the final boss. Don't know why, but yeah, it was great. It was just a stroll down memory lane, and I think this game is kind of slept on. Honestly, this is a good Mario game.
Yeah,
I enjoyed all the levels. There's lots of little secret levels you can access too once you get through the game, and the final and all the bosses. It's just such an easy play. Nothing is super difficult, but it all is just hard enough and skillful enough that you really still have to pay attention and be engaged with the game, and it still makes you feel accomplished afterwards, which is I think a very difficult balance.
Yes, for sure.
And mark to hit. Balance to achieve and mark to hit. So I really, really enjoyed that one. And I did enjoy that also Wario is the bad guy in this one, which you don't usually see. And Wario is like a little goblin man in this one. He is nasty looking. Really, really kind of just a weirdo, which is fun. You don't get to see that type of Wario often. It kind of feels like it's Bizarro Mario and Wario in this game because their sprites are just so different looking than their typical games. But it's fun. It was a great time to just go back through memory lane and like realizing how much of this music and these levels have been ingrained into my mind and are just kind of churning in the background without me knowing. So yeah, really, really fun game. Really enjoyed it quite a bit.
It's funny that you bring up Wario. I feel like there's the assumption with so many of the games like in Mario Tennis and like Mario Soccer is that like Wario's a bad guy. But it's so rare that I actually see him be a bad guy. Yeah. Other than like his capitalist endeavors in like WarioWare and shit like that.
Exactly, right? And he is the final boss in this game.
Yeah.
And it's pretty fun because they give him the same power-ups that you get in the game. And you have to
that's funny.
Beat him you have to beat yourself almost a little bit. Yeah. Which is cool.
He does look horrifying. I'm looking at pictures of him now. He very scary.
He looks like a goblin, gremlin, orc. Something non-human, that's for sure.
That's spooky. I don't think I like looking at him. His body is just, the proportion of Wario's head, I think, is really what's throwing me.
Like he doesn't, I know, the head is massive, right?
It's huge, yeah.
He looks like his body is just a little bit bigger, but his head is like also the size of Mario's body.
Yeah. The proportions are all wrong. I feel like I'm looking at like an H.P. Lovecraft horror. Like my mind is being fried from just seeing it.
You can't comprehend it in the three-dimensional world that we live in.
No, yeah.
He transcends dimensions. He's a fourth-dimensional being, Wario. I also have jumped back into Guacamelee 2.
Oh, yeah. You were playing this a little while ago, right?
I was. This is like my travel game.
Oh, sure.
It's always there. It's easy to jump back into and play. And it's always fun. It's always an enjoyable experience when I play this game. Mm-hmm. And it still is. There's always a little something new that the game throws at you, whether it's becoming a chicken, whether it's teleporting between different worlds, whether it's getting a different power that you didn't realize that you wanted or needed or could use in a specific way. Mm-hmm. It is a really nice, fun little Metroidvania. It's great. I love the colors still. Really, like, this game is not afraid to use colors, and I think more games should have that zest and that gusto for flair and color, because you can really do some pretty beautiful, cool things with color in games if you just let yourself do it, game developers. So yeah, it's still a lot of fun, and also I played it with a friend this time because it is up to 4 players. Yeah. So my good friend Jahan was visiting this weekend.
Sure.
And we busted into this game a little bit, and it was quite fun to play with 2 people. And he's a seasoned gamer, so he just jumped in and played. It was great. And that brings me to the next game I played, the last game that I really want to talk about.
Yeah.
Which was Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, yeah. The Blue Point remake?
The Blue Point remake.
Wow. I was just listening to episodes where we were talking about this like a year ago.
Yeah, I jumped in it and I was like, this game is beautiful and fun, but I never went all the way through it again. But Jahan was here and I'm like, Jahan, have you ever played Shadow of the Colossus? His answer was no, I don't even know anything about this game. That's know nothing. And I'm like, my boy, my son, my friend.
Let's go on a journey.
Let's get in this. And it is actually an exceptional one controller, 2-player game.
Yeah.
You just swap off between colossi. Mm-hmm. It's great. It's beautiful.
And you can also like strategize while you're like the other person's playing. Like, I think we need to go over here and do this thing. Or I bet if you go on this part of him, you'll be able to do this or whatever.
Exactly. It's also fun because this game has such weird controls.
Yes.
That it was fun to watch him experience climbing a Colossus and killing it for the first time.
Yeah.
It was a struggle.
It's a triumph whenever you actually do it, because it's like, God, I really had to work for that kill just now.
Not only did I have to work, I had to think a lot. I had to figure out what to do and how to do it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of strategizing in that game. I forget that it's really the first part of any Colossus is the puzzle of how do I get on this bastard?
Yeah.
And then how do I kill it? Mm-hmm. Mercilessly. As sad music plays as it crashes to the ground.
It's like a dirge. Like the music when it dies is just tragic.
It's so sad, and I really hate killing the one that is just like a playful puppy that's trying to like find you, and it's just like,
oh yeah,
it's like peeking underneath the little hill to see where you are, and you just climb up its back and just stab it multiple times in the head until it dies.
It's hellish. Yeah,
it was just trying to hang out. It was just trying to hang out with you. But yeah, this game is something special. Truly, it still holds up so well nowadays. It's still a breath of fresh air compared to so many games. God, it's just a masterpiece. It's just a masterpiece. It's so damn good. And the Blue Point did such an amazing job remaking it. The fur on these colossi moves and looks so good. My goodness, they did such a good job. But yeah, this game was real damn good, and I had a blast playing through it with Jahan. It was great.
Yeah, I feel like they did a good job on so many things. Like I think it is of course good that they got the Colossus like visuals right? Like that is an important part of the game, but I remember being really impressed with how well they did the like landscapes of the world.
Yep.
Because I feel like that is such an important part of the game, is this like kind of cold and empty moment, like after you kill a Colossus and you're going out to find another one.
Yeah.
Where there's no music, all you really have is kind of the wind and your horse and the sword that points you. Yeah, aggro. And like there's this like kind of terrible, at least for me, I think it might be the game just letting you sit with your decisions, but for me at least, there was like kind of this like terrible emptiness that settled in those moments where it's like there's this big, vast, beautiful landscape, and you're just kind of like trouncing through it to go find another thing to kill. And it's a little like reminiscent of like an Undertale or something like that, where I think the game is trying to make you look at like, is this really what we need to be doing? Obviously, like Shadow of the Colossus doesn't offer you an alternative, right? Like you can't turn around and leave if you want to. But I do think it's still pretty effective to like have those quiet moments between actually killing these big beasts and everything.
It's almost melancholic.
Yes, definitely. It's an amazing game. I'm constantly sort of in awe of this and Eco, and a little bit lesser extent The Last Guardian, because that game like wasn't that tight, but
yeah,
like the stuff that they're able to do with just like tone and like setting, like very basic things, but they just do it so well.
Yeah.
In a way that like, I don't know, I think games are so accustomed to being like a maximalist experience of just hitting you in the face over and over and over again with shit, that it's like impressive when a game just strips away everything that isn't necessary and gives you like, okay, we're just going to give you the visuals and some music when it's appropriate, and you're going to be fighting these big monsters. And like, I don't know, it's just so effective, that game.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that, so much of the game is just dependent on you going and seeking out these creatures. And it does kind of force your hand to go and do these things that, are kind of clearly like not good. Like it's trying to make you feel kind of bad about it. But yeah, it's just that it's like, I don't know, in music, when I was in band, our band teacher, Mr. Glazer, shout out Mr. Glazer.
Shouts out Mr. Glazer.
He said that you play the rests. That is something that you are actively playing is not playing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what those moments in Shadow of the Colossus remind me of. It's the emptiness, it's the lack of gameplay, it's the lack of sound, it's the lack of kind of direction that you have that really hammers home the fact that I am hunting these creatures and I am doing this on purpose because I want to do this. I think it really hammers home that point of the game to me of I'm in it to do this kind of bad thing that I know is bad, but I'm doing it anyways because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah. When I was younger, I found the story of this kid going and killing these things like much more sympathetic than I do now. Like I can't remember when this came out. I think it was like 2004 or something like that. It was a while ago. And I think I was just very used to game stories being what this game does, and at least in the setup, right? Of I have to save this person that like they don't. Do they ever really explicitly tell you what your relationship to this girl that you're trying to like revive is?
Not so far in the game. No.
I can't remember if it ever actually spells that out, but clearly you're there, right, to somehow revive her. This like god, I guess, is seemingly manipulating you, right?
Dormant.
Yeah, the guy who shows up and like tells you what to do. But yeah, the kid seems a lot less sympathetic to me now. Like I feel like I am playing as like Ganondorf when he was younger, and he just like destroyed all these creatures. You know, like
Ganondorf Origins. You mean?
Yeah, the origin story, Ganondorf Requiem, is it feels bad. It feels like I'm like not doing. Yeah, it feels like a villain origin story, and I know that like there's been some like heat and some criticisms of games that are like, we're gonna force you to do a bad thing and then make you feel bad about the bad thing you did. But I still think it's pretty effective in this game. For me, I never felt like, wow, I the player am the bad guy. It's just sort of telling me the story, and I am playing the part of this person, right?
Yeah, true.
And so it feels like there's a little bit of distance between me and this person, but still, I think it's pretty effective. I think this game is really incredible.
It's great. So good. Well, that's all I had been playing, Chase. What have you been playing?
Yeah, I played a bunch of games. I'm going to tell you, let me see. I think I'll talk about 3 of them.
Okay.
So it's been a little while. I think shortly after we recorded last time, the Advanced Wars Reboot Camp came out.
Oh, nice.
And I sure have been playing a lot of that. For a little bit of background, I flew to Mexico the Monday that we would have recorded last, and I was there for a week on our honeymoon, which was sweet.
Happy honeymoon.
Thank you. And as a result, had a lot of like downtime, had a lot of plane time. The way that Em and I relax is not going out every single day at the crack of dawn to go see a town. It's a lot more of, what do you want to do today? Nothing. Okay, perfect. Especially at the place we were staying at. It was a lot of just hanging out and doing what you do.
Solid.
Yeah. So anyway, I had a lot of time to play some games, one of which was Advanced Wars Reboot Camp. This is a remake of the first and second Advanced Wars game that came out on Game Boy Advanced like 15, 20 years ago. I don't remember how long, but a long time. Sidebar, I listened to the episode where I talked about this when I played this last year. And I said the same thing, and you had the exact same reaction. Oh, God.
Fuck.
So let's see. I played these games incredibly recently. Played them last year in the sort of like episode 51 to 56. I was playing Advanced Wars games. And I really enjoyed returning to them, especially because like I was capital B bad at Advanced Wars when I was younger.
Yeah.
I just sort of refused to engage with a lot of the tactics that the game wanted me to engage with. I was like, I just want to build 100 tanks and have that be enough. And it's very rarely is that a good enough strategy.
Are you German at your heart, Chase? Were you trying to do a blitzkrieg? Jesus.
Yeah, pretty much. We're going to use no other tactics, just a lot of tanks.
Oh man, that's for all the World War II buff dads out there who are listening to the podcast.
They're going to get a real kick out of that one. Yeah.
They're going to love that one.
So yeah, it was really fun to return to, and I think for the most part those games really held up. I think most games that are well made on the Game Boy Advance do hold up. The art just stands the test of time. It hasn't aged particularly badly at all, and I think the game itself was really well made, or both 1 and 2, and then I also played Dual Strike last year. So, but the remake of this is just 1 and 2. I think 2 is Black Hole Rising. It's the like subtitle of it, and I was like not skeptical, but I honestly was pretty excited about this just because like I wanted to see what they would change about this game. But I was also like, I just played this. Like, surely I won't want to do it all over again.
Yeah.
But that is incorrect. It's still very fun. So
you did it all over again.
Yeah, I've played through all of the first one, and then I'm like about halfway through the second one.
Dang, nice.
They're like pretty beatable games. Like I think I got through the first one in like 4 or 5 hours. It's not horribly long, and especially like I just played it, so I kind of remembered like, oh yeah, I remember this map. There's a trick to this one, or like there's a lot easier way to beat it if I just do XYZ thing. I was playing it last time on the RG351P. Which has rewind built into it. And so like that was a lot easier. There's a way to like restart a day or like a turn in this one. But it's like, I wouldn't call it buried in the menus, but it's not a particularly easy thing to do. Not as easy as like, Fire Emblem's Divine Pulse or anything is.
Sure.
Where you can like go back even a single turn or anything like that. And I understand why, right? Like the fog of war is a big deal in this game, and you kind of don't want to just like allow somebody to poke and prod until they figure out exactly where everybody is and then execute on that. But regardless, it's still largely pretty much mechanically the same game if you're playing on the classic difficulty, which to me just feels kind of like the base game. I know that there is a more casual difficulty that I really should have checked out, but I haven't yet, which I presume will make the game a little easier, which would be cool, right? Like I think that there's like a lot of fun mechanics and a lot of fun characters that this game has, and so I do think it's cool that they've included a way to get to that, whereas in the base game you're kind of just like hosed if you can't figure it out. All that said, the visual layer of the game is pretty much, it feels like it's been built from the ground up.
Nice.
It's all very new. All of the characters are like slightly voiced. They all have like kind of voice actors playing them. Like it's not full blown dialogue. It's usually just kind of like the first line of something.
Kind of voice actors. I'm a voice actor for fun.
Yeah, this is nobody who's being paid. No, I'm just kidding. There's like actually, regular voice actors in here, but it'll be like, somebody chirping in with like, oh, or I can't believe it, or something like that, rather than saying the entire line out.
Soundbite voice actors.
Yes, yeah. I'm also pretty sure that the person who's playing Andy is the person who played Ash Ketchum in Pokemon, because like
sure same energy.
It sure does sound like Ash Ketchum every now and then.
Hyper repair.
But yeah, the visuals are pretty much all redone. I think they do a good job of sort of like visually referencing the original style without just being a Game Boy Advance style game. It's all very cartoony and bright and colorful, which I think for this game makes a lot of sense. I think a game that is literally about warfare, you have to walk such a fine line between being a happy-go-lucky game and just like getting really down in the dumps about like, what does this mean to kill or anything like that.
Sure.
And they do such a good job of doing that. Everybody's like ridiculous and kind of over the top. And like, it's also obvious with the visual style in this one that I don't think they really had fidelity to do on the Game Boy. Like all of the characters look kind of like toys in a certain way.
Sure.
The maps, if you zoom out a little bit, look like they're taking place on like a literal game board.
Okay.
Like the edges of the map sort of curve down like it's a board game or something.
Sure. It doesn't make it feel so realistic.
No. And I think that's
good.
I think it's a really good choice. I have so little appetite for war games anymore. I think like just the usage of imagery that a lot of like, shooter games use, it's invoking like real world horrific shit.
Yeah.
And it is doing it in a way that tries to make it entertaining and sort of commodify it in a way that like feels kind of like a bummer. I'm sure that's not a hot take, but like just my appetite for that stuff, especially in a game that's like kind of story driven, it's just so low. For whatever reason, I can sort of like have a disjointed part of my brain if it's a multiplayer game. Like it doesn't trigger the same sort of like, oh, this is a real thing that real people go through. It's kind of like, well, it's a multiplayer game. I don't know. For whatever reason, it doesn't bother me as much. But in like a single player game where you're experiencing a story of a person who's going to war, it feels kind of bad.
Yeah.
So I think the choice to make the sort of like warfare in this feel like it's people playing a board game is a incredibly smart decision, and I'm glad they've done it. I will say the motion in this game feels really good or looks really good.
The motion,
just like the characters whenever they're like moving, it looks really good and like well made. All the sort of like little characters that you're controlling. I haven't explained what Advanced Wars is, and I'm almost done with this. Advanced Wars is like a tactics game.
Yeah,
sort of a la like Fire Emblem, kind of, where it's a grid-based game and you're essentially just trying to like, beat your enemy back or capture their base or whatever. A lot more simplified version of like a StarCraft or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me that I don't see this kind of game emulated very often. I think I see a lot of like 4X games or any games on the PC that are more strategy based that harken towards more of a StarCraft or a Warcraft kind of game. But very rarely, other than like Wargroove, do I see games that are trying to do this kind of Advanced Wars style game. And I'm a little bit surprised about that because like this game is selling incredibly well right now. And so I don't know if maybe they just don't want to come for the king or something like that, but still, regardless, I'm really enjoying this game. I think they have put a greater emphasis on the characters than were in the first one. And I think that's just like, a consequence of adding a little bit of voice acting, more animation, giving a little bit more dialogue, tightening up the dialogue that was already there. And so you get a better sense of like who these people are. And I think these characters are all pretty fun, right? Like everybody in the Orange Star Army is great. Like Max and Nell, is that her name? Andy and Sammy are all really great. The like blue Army, those dudes are incredible. Olaf and Grit is incredible as like a player. I'd love to play as Grit. He's sort of the ranged guy. Grit, like he has a lot better range on almost all of his like artillery and shit like that. And yeah, I think that goes throughout. And so it like weirdly is a character driven game for me right now. I'm kind of just enjoying like seeing where these people go and what they do and all that sort of stuff. And
can you go on dates?
Unfortunately, you can't go on dates.
No kissing?
No kissing in this one. Although at the same time, like I don't know that there's a lot of like suitable bachelor and bachelorettes in this one. Like they're all kind of bizarre people that I don't know would necessarily line up correctly for a dating game. But still.
You're just not thinking big enough, Chase.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I should have considered dating the leader of Black Hole Army, the robot.
Definitely.
Anyway, so like I'm enjoying this game a lot. I hope that they are able to iterate on this a little bit and sort of continue this franchise, because it's like kind of weird, not abandoned, I wouldn't say that, but like it's been a while since they've made a new one. And clearly the appetite is there. I don't think a lot of this is like just nostalgia based, like when we had played through like the Spyro collection a year or two ago, and like that game felt very reliant on someone's own nostalgia to like really enjoy it. Yeah. Of just like, oh yeah, I remember this game and like this part. Cause like some of those mechanics that were kind of rough, like they haven't aged incredibly well in a world where like 3D platformers have aged and iterated a lot.
They've been refined quite a bit.
Yeah. Whereas like this game still, like even if you stripped away the visual layer, it would still be really, really good. The games on the GBA are still really, really good. And so I don't think that it's an issue of like, or that the sales can be pointed to just like, well, everybody liked this when they were a kid, now they're buying it. I think like the game is still very good. And so I hope that they're able to do something with this and carry it forward a little bit, because I think there's a lot of room to grow there. I think this is a cool series.
That's the same thing I feel about Shadow of the Colossus. There's been no Shadow of the Colossus likes since the game came out. And I feel like that's part of what makes it still feel so good and fresh, which is fun, right? But like someone could find a way to make this control better. There's got to be a way, because the controls are still so wonky. That's part of like the charm of this game for sure. Don't get me wrong here. But it could definitely be streamlined and refined, this process. And part of me is like, come on, someone take the lead and do this and see, and maybe if you fail, right? But it would be really interesting to see what could happen with like a modern take on a Shadow of the Colossus, or also an Advance Wars, right? Because like you said, there's room to improve. There's always room to improve, right? It's just someone has to take that leap of faith, like Ezio.
No, absolutely. I think you get like parts of Shadow of the Colossus influencing stuff here and there, but it's very rarely has it felt sort of the same highs that that game engages with. I think you see people playing with like scale and enemy designs in kind of a similar way every now and then, but not just, it's none of it's really the same deal. I mean, if I was making a game, I don't know that I would try and emulate Shadow of the Colossus. That seems like a big...
Totally fair.
Yeah, like it just seems like such a hard thing to nail. But somebody could. There's plenty of talented game designers and game developers out there.
True.
Anyway, Advance Wars Reboot Camp. Very good game. Worth a look if you're interested in that stuff at all. I really like it a lot.
Awesome.
The other game that I played a little bit of in my time in Mexico was I tried to get back into Parasite Eve 2.
Oh, okay.
A little bit of background. I played Parasite Eve 1 probably a year or two ago now, and I've obviously like I played it a ton when I was a kid. I have a lot of appreciation for that game, and I think it's just like fascinating as a look at like what Square was doing in non-Final Fantasy games at the time.
Sure.
Like so much of it feels like a Final Fantasy game or like a Vagrant Story or something like that. But it's, in New York in 1999, and you're playing as like a cop with a gun, which, some parts of that are not great, but Aya Brea is a great protagonist. So Do with that what you will. So anyway, I really, really liked Parasite Eve 1. I think the vibe of it is incredible. It like touches on so much like cosmic horror stuff, some amount of like body horror in the way that like PlayStation 1 has a special ability to do. I just found it like incredible. And after I had finished beating that one, I jumped into Parasite Eve 2, and the last time I experienced it, I just wasn't quite as hot on it as I was expecting to be. I'd played Parasite Eve 2 a fair bit when I was younger and appreciated it at the time. I thought it was pretty good, but it's like all in all a pretty different game than the first one. Like mechanically, it is not turn-based in the way that the first one is. It's much more like an active action game. Like it controls much more like just a third-person shooter game.
Yeah.
The story is also very different. Like I think it moves away from the cosmic horror stuff and is much more closer to like a Resident Evil game where like you show up at a weird place and there's weird creatures and that sort of like eventually devolves into you going into like a very modern looking lab and figuring out what caused all the creatures to be here.
I just imagine a pitch meeting for Resident Evil. You show up in a weird place and there's weird creatures.
Got a bunch of these weird guys that were going to show up.
The vibe is weird.
Spooky? Has anybody heard of Spooky before?
Spooky. There's this other guy there that you talk to. He's also weird. He's weird.
But he's not the biting kind of weird, you know?
Yeah, he's just the weird kind of weird.
So I was hoping to maybe try this game again and see like, maybe it was just that I had played Parasite Eve 1 too recently and I was comparing them too much to one another. And so I kind of popped this back in and tried to give it another go. And I'm still kind of in the same spot, unfortunately enough.
Sure.
Like, I think that there are things to appreciate about it. I think the game is a lot more interested in like making the combat fun and sort of making that into an RPG because I didn't realize this when I was a kid, but the game is kind of trying to get you to revisit a bunch of the locations that you go to get more like BP
battle points
to be able to like upgrade your character and your guns and all that sort of stuff. Like it doesn't have explicit levels in the way that the last one did. It's much more like you've got this much experience and you can spend that experience to upgrade your like, parasite powers or whatever.
Parasite powers.
It's like a laser beam and you can heal yourself and shit like that.
The powers are a laser beam. That's a pretty video game ass sentence right there.
You got a laser beam.
You got a laser beam.
I think they call it combustion in this one.
Combustion.
It's a laser beam.
Everyone loves a good laser. Shout out Sacramento Kings.
Shout out the now defeated Sacramento Kings.
R.I.P. the Kings.
Yeah, shouts out, guys. So I am mostly, like I said, I think there's things to appreciate in that it is trying a bunch of different stuff, but I still feel like the vibe of the game is just sort of lacking in a way. And like in hindsight, in the daylight of 2023, the games Resident Evil and Parasite Eve 1 are so different, and I think that that's a good thing. Where I think in 1999 or whenever, I think it was around there that this came out. Yeah. I think they saw that as a bad thing. I think that they saw like, oh shit, we need to drive towards what Resident Evil was doing because that game has sold incredibly well. Not to mention like one of the directors of Resident Evil 1 is working on Parasite Eve 2 when it's being developed.
Makes sense.
They're like, well shit, let's just bring in the people who made Resident Evil. And I think you can feel that. I think the combat system is reflective that it was built by someone who was critical in building Resident Evil. That said, I think that there are parts of the combat system that don't feel good. Like I think Resident Evil, the original, I think 3, all of them are using tank controls. And I think a lot of the enemies are built with that in mind. The horror in using tank controls in the Resident Evil game is that you are able to frame what someone is able to see very well. And so the scary parts are like, oh shit, I wonder what's around this corner. And like oftentimes, like, the zombies are like shambling and spooky, but they're not doing a lot of like, they're not really styling on you, like they're not going to break your ankles trying to like put up a 3-pointer next to where you are. Like they're just
not, these zombies are not playing street ball.
No, they're just kind of wandering towards you. And like the same thing is true with a lot of the enemies in those games, minus maybe like the dogs, but most of them are just walking towards you with varying amounts of speed. Whereas like, I think Parasite Eve, there's a bunch of enemies where like you kind of need to maneuver a little bit more. And like there's a specific enemy I'm thinking about, these like horse enemies with like human heads. It's horrifying. But
Jesus.
To really like fight them properly, you need to be able to like move left or right to dodge out of the way because they usually charge you. And if you can dodge them and there's a wall behind you, they'll hit the wall and fall down. You can do a lot more damage to them. However, tank controls don't allow for sideways movement You have to sort of like turn your body and run that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels like the game is kind of trying to have it both ways of like, we want to have these interesting enemies that you have to think about how to approach in kind of a similar way to the first one, but we're also still going to give you tank controls in this like action game. So I think those two things just don't really suit the game well.
Sure.
And like I said, just kind of feels like an artifact of them chasing after the trend of Resident Evil games being very popular at the time.
Sure.
And also like the story of the game also feels like they took the spark notes of a Resident Evil game and just sort of slapped it in there, right? Like I said, show up to a weird place, there's some weird guys, and then you go down into a mine, right? And there's a bunch of like...
A mine?
like a very...
Gimli's down there.
There's a bunch of weird guys down there too, but it's like a lab, you know?
Sure.
So I think that if somebody played this game before they played the other one, I could see them having an appetite for this game more than I do. But I think all in all, like it just didn't really match the hope that I was having for it. There are still a lot of like fun parts about it. I think there are parts of this game that are very frightening, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of the enemy design is like genuinely pretty spooky, but it just never really reached the highs that the first one had for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I also like totally fucked up. I'm playing this on the Steam Deck using a form of playing PlayStation 1 games that everybody knows, wink. And
some style.
And switching discs is always kind of a challenge for me in these games.
Sure.
And I did a real bad boo-boo where whenever I boot up RetroArch, I set it so that it automatically loads whatever save state I had previously used. And I when I was switching the discs, my game crashed. And then I realized it too late essentially. And I accidentally loaded the save state that I had previously, which like undid about 4 hours of me playing Parasite Eve, which is a painful situation.
A gamer nightmare.
This happens. My God.
Yeah. No.
Man, that's what happens when you switch the disc. I just switched the disc. Switch.
That was a good one. That came out of nowhere, David.
You like that?
Yeah, that's good. Anyway, yeah, I think all in all, not a bad game at all, but definitely not matching what I was hoping for out of it. However, in very stark contrast, I'm also playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor, David.
Ooh. Are you playing it on PC or are you playing it on console?
I'm playing it on PlayStation. I'm playing it on PlayStation 5.
Okay.
Because I heard PC was kind of rough and like I've got a good graphics card, but I don't know that I necessarily have the heft that I would need for this one.
The heft.
I also find like this kind of game just works pretty well for me on a console.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially if it's like kind of a longer game, like I presume Jedi Survivor is. Not longer like Persona 5 long, but you know, I'm going to be spending some time on the couch with this one.
Yeah.
So let's see. Just to start, there's a lot of shit like on the internet about this game right now. Everybody, just chill. Just chill. They're working on it. Just relax. It's fine.
Deep breath, everyone. It's going to be okay.
It's going to be fine. Like it's not perfect right now. And like I've experienced a little bit of this. Like it's a little framey here and there. The frame rate dips a little bit, a little stuttering, a little bit of pop in every now and then of like, you know, textures far away that aren't there when you need them to be. But currently for me, none of this has stopped me from playing the game. So just chill. It'll be fine. It's not the sort of thing where like I'm trying to play Cyberpunk on launch and I just like can't play the video game.
Yeah.
It's a lot more about like performance and like, like it's not great to, you know, switch it into performance mode expecting 60 frames a second and not do that. But like, it's fine, man. Like the game is still mostly there.
You know, we've all been in a situation where we haven't performed the way we wanted to. So
it's true.
It's okay.
It's okay. That's fine. It happens. And like they're clearly saying like, yeah, we'll fix this. Just give us some time. So all that said, talking about the actual game part of it, because like I'm just a little bit less interested in the meta conversation about this game because like the game is actually doing a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
First off, I really liked the last Star Wars Jedi game that they put out. I thought it was really fun. I loved the turn towards the Dark Souls-y kind of game. I also know that it like really wasn't for some people, which at the time I was kind of surprised about. Like I thought it would be kind of a universal hit, but I found a lot of people didn't really like this style of game. And I think I understand that a little bit more this time coming through, but I will say like most of it is still landing for me pretty well. They have updated a lot of stuff about this game. So let me see where to start. I think it's been like 5 years in this game since the end of the last one.
Okay.
And they really drop you in kind of in, what is that phrase? In medias res or whatever.
Oh, sure. In the middle of something. Yeah.
Yeah. In the middle of shit. And like, I think that that's a fun way to introduce this game, like of just like things are different and let's figure out like what has happened in the subsequent 5 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think all the stuff that they're doing with like the story and why the state of the world is the way that it is working really well. The first game's story I thought was like, okay, right? Like, yeah. I don't think there's anything really groundbreaking going on there. No. And it was also like fairly well-trodden territory for a Star Wars story, right? Yeah. Like kid who was Force sensitive and was being trained, ran into tragedy, and now has to struggle to become a Jedi, right? Like we've heard that one before.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And like, not that that's bad. I'm not a Star Wars freak, you know, like I'm not the craziest about Star Wars, but I enjoy Star Wars as a property, right? Like, I've enjoyed most of the shit that they've put out, and like
not a Star Wars freak, but a Star Wars enjoyer.
Yes, yeah. Like the stuff that is good, I can find enjoyment in, and even some of the stuff that like people don't think is good, you know, right? Like I don't hate a lot of the cringe millennial dialogue in the last couple Star Wars movies. That was fine.
It's millennial dialogue? What does that mean?
Like all the sort of like Marvel style writing of like winking at the camera and did that just happen? That just happened. All that sort of stuff.
That's millennial writing? Is that how that's known?
I think so. I think that's kind of what it's coming down
I don't want to be known for that.
I know it sucks, right? Because like there was a time when that worked for me, but it's a little grating. But regardless,
trite.
Yeah, regardless, I don't hate a lot of that stuff. And like I would say the first 4, 5, 6 are an incredibly important movie series to me. I loved the sort of everything in there, and I also watched those movies with my mom and my grandparents and like had just an incredible time doing that. I remember that very vividly.
Yeah.
We had like pushed out like a futon in the middle of the living room to like watch those movies at nighttime, which is just like
solid.
Great time. Really had a good time with that one. I don't think my grandparents absorbed a lot of Star Wars. A lot of time was, who's that? What did he say? So I don't think that they really were,
that's big. Part of the experience.
Yeah. It was part of the ambiance. But I liked them quite a bit. So anyway, I wasn't crazy about the story in the first one, but I think that they're already doing a lot more. I also seem to like Cal Kestis in this one. Which is, I felt nothing about Cal Kestis in the first game.
He was like one of the most neutral main characters I've experienced in a while. Like not he bad, but not like not someone who I was like actively rooting for either, which is interesting.
Cal Kestis is me drinking a room temperature cup of water when I'm kind of thirsty. Like it's there, and I appreciate that it's there, but like this could be done a lot better.
I know we could spice this up with like a little like I don't know lemon twist in here or something.
A different temperature.
A different temperature. Maybe put some ice in there. Yeah, Then you're really cooking with some water at that point.
But they I like what they've done with him in this one. He's more compelling to me. Seems like he's struggling a little bit more. And like I am much more interested in the light side user struggles with what is morally okay as story.
Like,
I like that a lot more.
Like what was that Star Wars game we played recently?
Jedi Outcast?
Jedi Outcast, yeah, right?
Yes, yeah, with Kyle Katarn.
Katarn,
I think, yeah.
Cheeked up?
Oh my God, yeah, thick king. So yeah, I like that story a lot more because I think that is a lot more relatable, and it takes a little bit away from like, I'm a fanciful space wizard that has cool powers to like, am I doing what is right? Because that's I can empathize with trying to do what's right and not always knowing. I can't empathize with being a space wizard. That's not as easily for me to put myself into.
Yeah, it makes it more interesting because at that point you're getting more into like, I don't know, just relatable territory. Kind of like how Spider-Man's always dealing with responsibility of power. Like what are you supposed to do? Yeah. As opposed to all the movies where it's just so cut and dry, good versus evil. I like that in the games and other media they explore the morality of it all and how people struggle with this stuff.
Yeah, makes them feel a lot more human to me. So I sort of appreciate what they're showing Cal going through, and also like having jumped a fair bit of time into the future, like it seems like there is a lot that has happened and you're kind of being fed what happened in those 5 years kind of slowly. And I like that a lot. I think if you just told this game straight through, this, then this, then this, it wouldn't be quite as effective as like, here's where Cal is 5 years in, and we're going to give you a little bit of what happened, but you're already seeing how he's acting. It's different, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think like just on the surface of that, I like what they're doing with him a lot more. Let's see. The world design is really good.
Nice.
You sort of like, the first level or so is very much like showing you, I think it's on Coruscant. And it's clear that like you're probably not going to be here for that long. This is very much like the first level world. But the second place you get to is much more like kind of a hub area.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what they're doing there. The first one was, it felt like there was a lot of like, this is a level and this is a level and there's, you know, this spot and that spot. And it was a lot more like bespoke. Mm-hmm. But the world that they have here is a lot more open, which is really, really nice. I think what's the name of the ship in this one? It's like the Viper or the Mantis, I think is what it is. Mm. The Mantis in the first one sort of served as your home base.
Yeah.
And that's where you would go back and get like story beats and sort of updates on the characters that you care about. But in this one, they have, the Mantis is still there, but the home base that you have is like a lot more grounded of a place.
Okay.
I don't want to get too much into it for fear of like spoiling a little bit, but point being like there is a place that you can return to very often, and people on your travels that you run into, you can be like, hey, come and hang out at this place. It's fine there. And you can like have a life, and they'll be like, all right, cool. And so you see a bunch of these characters that you run into like in this place that you're kind of building up.
Nice.
In this like almost sort of like Western town. I feel like there's a lot of like allusions to it being kind of an old West place, which is, it's cool. I think the visuals and like the vibe there are really cool. Yeah, I think that's all really great. The world is also just like I said, a lot more open than the last one. There's so many places to go and so much like, you know, so many corners to go explore. Mm-hmm. And I think that serves a Star Wars world really well. I don't remember a Star Wars game ever being quite as like expansive as this, as far as like the places that you can go check out, which is neat. Like I think a lot of the time Star Wars games are much more focused on telling a single story in a single way and having you go from one point A to point B, and that's like it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like, obviously there's a story being told here, but there's a lot of room to just like go wander and explore and check out what's behind every nook and cranny and shit like that.
Yeah. Nice.
Which is really, really, really great. I just find the world really like pretty and expansive. And they've also really nailed like the Star Wars of it all. Like it feels like it's in a Star Wars universe, which is in some ways a hard thing to do. And also like maybe not a hard thing to do. Like
sure.
It's hard to nail that, but yeah. I'm glad that they've put the world in place that they have.
Nice.
I also love that like weirdly Star Wars is kind of an accepting property to just make a new alien race.
Sure.
Which is awesome. Like I love whenever there's just like, here's this weirdo that you're going to like love. Shouts out to my boy Turgle, who is the best character in any Star Wars game. Yes.
I need to see this Turgle.
He's voiced by Raz from Psychonauts.
Oh, damn.
He is the best. I love Turgle. I go and talk to him anytime that I can. I need every inch of dialogue that this guy has.
That's a weird little guy.
It's a weird little guy. And he's great. He's really, really good. You like save his life in the first like part of the game. Again, in a very like Wild West way. He's like gets thrown out of a bar and there's people who are going to kill him, and then you show up kind of behind everybody and fight them. It's great. It's really fun.
Solid.
I will also say that the music is astounding. It's really good, and like I just don't remember it being quite as effective in the first one. They've clearly got like some kind of full orchestra or something, and it sounds incredible. Most of the time when I'm playing, I'm like, God damn, this is really like setting the mood correctly.
Nice.
In a way that I just don't remember the first one doing.
Hell yeah.
And there's also just like, it's good in this one. I think good Star Wars music can really like set you in the right space, pun intended, to like play the game. So it's really, really great. I will also say that like the relationship between Marin, did you play the first game all the way through?
Yeah, I beat it.
Yeah, so the relationship between Marin and Cal in this one is really, really cool.
Marin's the Jedi who like turned away from the Force, right?
No, that's Seer, I think is how you say her name.
Yeah.
Marin was like the person who you ran into who was using like the kind of other form of magic. She was like part of like, what is that, the Dark Sisterhood or something like that?
Matriarchy?
I think so, yeah. The relationship between her and Cal is just like very sweet. sweet in a way that I don't know that I really see in a lot of other media. It's clear that like they sort of have beef, but like when they run into each other again in this game, it's like very much the emphasis is not on like will they, won't they sort of thing. It's like there's a sweetness between these two people that I find really nice. It was just sort of unexpected. Like I expect any sort of romantic relationship in a video game to be like a will they, won't they, or these people are mad at each other, but then they're going to be, you know, all over each other. And it wasn't that. It was just like, hey, it's good to see you. And like, I missed you. And we've got a lot of shit to clearly do. And like, there's clearly something that happened between everybody, but like, it's, you know, I'm happy you're around again, which is just like, it's so nice. I was not expecting that to be like as kind of nuanced as they've portrayed it. What else? It feels fucking good to swing a lightsaber, man. Like just at the bottom of this, like they have nailed swinging a lightsaber.
Absolutely.
It feels great. The movement in this one really reminds me of like a Sly Cooper almost.
Ooh.
Where there is a similar level of like kind of floatiness that Cal has, similar to Sly. Yeah, bounciness, I think is probably a better word. And I really appreciate that. They're doing a lot of stuff in the movement that makes it feel so much fun. Like just extended sequences where you're like, okay, I'm going to jump off this wall, I'm going to wall run over here in a Prince of Persia ass way.
Nice.
I'm going to pull this rope over with the force, swing on that, go on this other thing over here. It starts to feel like a platformer in a way that is actually significant. And I really, really appreciate that. There's also these optional sort of like platforming sections where it feels so much like those sections in like Mario Sunshine, where you go into like a weird other world and have to go through like kind of a tough area or anything like that, where any other Mario game where there's like these optional side areas where you just have to kind of like get good at jumping good enough. Yeah. There was one that's like, I swear is straight out of Super Mario 3D World where there's a big like wall of I don't know, maybe a laser or something, I'm not sure, that lasers again. It takes up half of the right side of the screen or half of the left side of the screen, and it swaps whenever you jump, which I swear is out of a Mario game. And so you're having to like traverse this area and pay attention to like, I need to jump at the correct time to make sure that the laser isn't about to like go past me and kill me, which is just like, I didn't expect it to be in this game, and I'm really appreciative that it is. I think it adds a lot to it. I have heard people complain about that part, that they're not really into it, and I understand. Like, it's not the sublime sort of Mario jumping stuff that I think you would find in a Mario game, but I found it really fun to go through those spots. I think it's been kind of a blast. Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen some heat online for this game, like outside of the sort of like performance stuff. I think that, you know, some people are complaining that it's like kind of like too much like a Zelda game, which really strikes me as a weird thing to complain about. Maybe it's just like not somebody's tea, but it's in a lot of the sections, it's like it goes from sort of being an Uncharted thing where you're climbing through areas and, you know, just traversing a space, to a little bit more of a Zelda thing where there's a little bit of a puzzle you got to figure out. And like, I get it if that's not necessarily your jam. But for me personally, all that stuff is really, really working. Yeah, I think this is a great game. It is like, I'm so happy that they iterated on that first one, because they clearly had like the core of that game down so tight. At this point, it feels like they're kind of just like honing that in and flexing the world building and the characters and taking you to all these like really cool spots in the Star Wars universe. So I think it's really great. I'm really, really enjoying this game. Nice. And like, I'm sure all the, you know, bugs will get ironed out. It is not, like I said, it is not the Cyberpunk 2077 sort of like bugs. It's a lot more of like, the frame rate kind of sucks right here. Yeah. You know, Cal's head is in a weird position right now when he's using this weapon. All right, that's fine. They can fix that. And anyway, this will bring me to my Podtimistic thing, because it relates to all this. It is the sheer amount of dress up you get to play in this game, and really in any game. Yeah. For whatever reason, and I'm enjoying it, but Jedi Survivor has decided to just go all in on letting you fuck with Cal's image in every way possible.
I've seen this.
Oh my God, it's so good. They let you change his hair, his beard, his shoes, his top, his pants. You can customize the colors on BD1 or any of your weaponry. Yeah, man, they let you serve looks in this fucking game. Like, they really let you dress him up. I've sort of got Cal dressed up as just like a weird Jedi sicko who's like got the whole like Qui-Gon Jinn sort of bun. He's got a big old beard right now. Just looking real Jedi-ish. Like, he's been out there thinking about the Force for a
wandering
while.
monk.
Yes, yeah. Which I really love and allows me to do a little bit of interpreting on who Cal is.
Sure.
Because like you can still have him be that, fresh-faced, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed boy. But I kind of like the interpretation that he's like a little bit more weathered now. Mm-hmm. God, yeah. I love being able to play dress up in any fucking video game.
Hell yeah.
Just let me have a cool clothes that I get to put on. Mm-hmm. It took a while for games to do that. I feel like for a while they were just like, you get the one outfit and that's it.
Yeah.
But like, there's a period of time where like, even if I could just see the difference in what my sword looked like, I was like, that's great.
Makes
I love
a huge
that.
difference.
So shouts out to being able to
customization.
put on a new shirt.
Beautiful.
Do you have something fueling your sense of optimism, David?
Yeah, Chase. It's a nice poison swamp.
Oh, wow. Am I talking to Miyazaki right now? Is that
You're talking to Mr. Miyazaki himself. Miyazaki-san himself.
Love a swamp.
Love it. I'm really putting my Podtimistic glasses on for this one. I do feel like a good poison swamp really makes you play a specific way and challenges you in a specific way in the game. And then it also, when you get to a spot that's not poison swamp and killing you, it feels so nice. It feels so nice. There are a few things that feel nicer than being on a nice little, small, tiny little island in this swamp of just nasty butt and you're not dying actively. Right. There is something homey about it. There are very few things that feel as comforting in a video game as a spigot of non-poison land in a poison land.
It's true.
So thank you, Miyazaki, for giving me this experience.
Yeah, really crushing it with that one.
But no, I do like it. It is just become a funny. I don't know. I feel like he does it on purpose. Just be like, hey, it's me.
Yes.
It's me again. Miyazaki here. Here's your poison swamp. So it is something that you kind of look forward to in these games. Like, all right, where's the swamp? Where's the poison swamp? Because it's coming. Got to save all my poison reducing items for then. Can't use any of them anytime before then because it's going to be bad when I get there. But there is just something interesting at how he's able to make it feel different each time. He gives you a little spin on every time that you do it. In Dark Souls 3, there's swamp that goes up to your knees and you have to just wade through it very slowly, very, very slowly. And it's really rough sometimes, but you got to think. It makes you have to think in a specific way, which I do appreciate.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Miyazaki has been on record so many times of just being like, I love making these fucking nasty swamps, man.
It's a very specific style of gameplay that you have to engage in when you're in these swamps. You have to manage a lot of stuff.
There's this interview that he just pulled this up. I think it was in 2022. He said, in terms of how the player feels when they encounter this area, that is a different story. But when making the game, this is about Elden Ring, I discovered my love for making poison swamps. Rediscovered my love for making poison swamps. Said, I know how people feel about them, but suddenly I realize I'm in the middle of making one and I just can't help myself. It just happens. So like my boy just can't stop.
The swamp is in his heart.
Yeah. Sing me the swamp of your heart.
Have we ever seen Miyazaki and Shrek in the same room? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
It is his swamp.
It is his swamp.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It definitely takes a certain appreciation to appreciate a swamp, but I feel it.
Yeah. It feels right in a Miyazaki game at this point. His calling card, you could say.
Well, hey, do you want to move on to our main thing, David?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, David.
Hey, Chase.
It's Good Games. It's the segment where we talk about the okayest games of yesteryear and gush all the things that we love about them. We're back.
We're back.
This feels like a warm blanket hug, this segment, once again.
It's been a while. It's been a bit.
I know. And we're coming back with a bang, with kind of a bigger game than that we typically cover.
Yeah, this is definitely more game than we usually cover in this segment.
We are talking about Darksiders 1, just Darksiders, I think, in this segment. And this was suggested to us by listener Murray. Thank you, Murray.
Yeah, thanks, Murray.
They had suggested this one a little while ago, but I was interested to do this game. Had you played this game at all, like when it came out?
I had never played this game, but I'd heard of it.
I had played like the first hour or so.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I had gotten up until the point where you fight whoever's guarding Samael or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I think pretty much stopped, which is like considerably before the better part of this game starts happening.
There's a lot going on in this game.
There is kind of a lot, which we will get into, but can I hit you with a few hot stats about this game, dude?
Please.
Hot stats.
So Darksiders, the original game, came out January 5th of 2010. 13 years ago now. A bit.
Yeah.
I had played this on Xbox 360. I think it also came out on PlayStation 3. It's been re-released on like a bunch of consoles. This one's like pretty available.
I didn't realize how many times it'd been re-released.
Yeah, kind of a lot.
Yeah.
There was was it remastered or something
Warhammer
like that?
edition?
Yeah, Warhammer 40K version. No, but they've put it out a couple times, and I had texted you that, hey, it's on PlayStation after I realized that after I had bought it on the Switch. Mm-hmm. And the Switch famously is like, hey, sorry, bro, you broke it, you buy it. So I just stuck with it and played it on Switch, which I will say, like, it ran fine on Switch, which I really did not have an issue with.
Yeah. No, and I think it's actually kind of a good Switch game. I got it on Switch as well.
Oh, cool. Nice. Yeah, no, I agree. It works pretty well on the Switch. Like you can really jump in and jump out.
Yeah. It
was made by this company called Vigil Games, which really only made this and Darksiders 2. And then they got like kind of rolled into a bunch of different teams. The team that managed the remaster is this team called Kaiko. So a different company handled the remaster. But yeah, the Vigil Games was mostly this and Darksiders 2, which came out, I think it was a couple years after this one.
Yeah.
They had this whole plan to cover the story of not only the Horseman War, but the other 3 Horsemen as well, which I think they got to 3 of them and then sort of 4 of them, but I don't think it went quite to plan how they were hoping to.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see. I also have a review.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's from Joe Video. I didn't write it down, but we're gonna say that this one's from Joe Video.
Here we go.
They are an outlet out of France, and I have taken their review, translated it into English, and then a bunch of other languages, one into the other, and eventually arriving back into English.
Citations be damned.
Citations be damned. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
This is about the art. So let me read you what they had to say about Darksiders 1. Striking a balance between content and style, Whistle Games has given us a pure action-adventure. Balanced, sweet, bright, angry. The effects of the title create a lot of emotions. Princess of Persia, God of War, The Legend of Zordo, Portal, and many other series have constantly added to the regenerative power of Dark Blood. Eclectic also promotes the concept of bigger, better, longer. Never satisfied. Do what you want. THQ games are like the stars in the sky. Hopefully players will follow suit, leading to the possibility of a sequel. We are already shaking. And I didn't write down what they gave that one, but we can guess. We can guess.
Bigger, faster, longer.
I know. They had that in quotes, so I'm assuming that they're like referencing something, but I'm not totally positive, to be honest.
Is it like, it sounds like the Air Force motto.
Bigger, better, longer. The U.S. Navy.
That sounded like a fast food commercial for some reason, the way you said that.
Carl's Jr., we have the 4 horsemen.
Did you just combine Carl's Jr. and Arby's?
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here, man.
Anyways, nicely done. I also liked Zordo. Legend of Zordo.
Yeah, The Legend of Zordo, my favorite game. Hey, can you tell me what Darksiders 1 is?
Darksiders 1 is a hack and slash video game, third person, that has elements of a lot of other games in it. Its bones and its structure for most of the game is like a Zelda game where you have like dungeons that have little puzzles in it that you have to solve to go through. Mm-hmm. The combat is more akin to like a God of War. The traversal is more akin to like a mixture of God of War and Prince of Persia, like Joe Video was saying. Yeah. And then you have other little smatterings of games throughout. Like there's this one section where you're flying on a hippogriff of some sort, I think, and it's kind of like Panzer Dragoon, Orda, right? And then in the end of the game, there's something like Portal. So there's a lot going on in this game. But you take the role of War of the 4 Horsemen, and it is essentially the apocalypse, right? So heaven and hell are fighting against each other, and humanity is caught in the middle. Yeah. There's some lighthearted fuckery that goes on that makes War have to then prove his innocence in starting the apocalypse of some sort. And then you get attached to Mark Hamill, and you go on your merry adventure.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. The like tone of the game, I will say, is very of its era. Feels very 2010.
Yes.
War is just like grumbling the whole time about innocence and I need to heed the call and all this shit.
Yeah, but speaking like a Shakespearean actor too.
Yeah, it's all very so. It's pretty bizarre too, especially in the wake of playing God of War 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was playing this, I was like, "Are you going to regret this war? Are you going to regret the way that you showed up in these times?" But I think the game is it is telling you not to look at it quite that hard.
No,
I think you're just supposed to be like, yeah, it's ridiculous and silly, and that's the game.
I hit them with my big sword. I did good.
Yes. A lot of voice acting talent in this one. There's a lot of people in here.
Truly, yeah. I was a little shocked.
I mean, I think I didn't realize it at the time, like who was in here, but certainly hearing Mark Hamill, I was like, hey, that's I know that voice.
Yeah. Immediately, I'm like, oh, he's doing like the Joker.
And he's doing a great job. I really like. I love the. I think the Watcher is the name of the character he plays. Yeah. Essentially, this like little ghoul who follows you around to keep you in check from what is it?
The Charred Council.
Yes, exactly. The people who like are kind of in charge of letting the
apocalypse.
Yeah, they were, I guess, like came into be to try and keep heaven and hell from like destroying the world.
Exactly.
In fighting each other. Mm-hmm. Which that's a fun concept. I like that lore.
Yeah. I did enjoy the lore in this game.
It's like so over the top in a way that like is very 2010s games, but I think is also fun. It's pretty ridiculous.
Absolutely. And the lore definitely reminded me of it trying to be like a God of War, like very intense mythology backgrounds, big characters that you've heard of before in like, I don't know, Bible study class, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah. So let me see. Mark Hamill is in there. Troy Baker, of course. I mean, if you make a game, Troy Baker shows up at your house asking you if you need a voiceover. So it's sort of the default there.
Can I have some work, please?
He plays Abaddon in this one. Phil Lamar plays Volgrim, which is pretty sick.
Mm-hmm.
Liam O'Brien is the guy who plays War. I think that was the most of the people that I recognized by name.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty wild voice cast. It seems like in playing this, I was like, it seems like there was a lot of money that was put into this game. Especially at the time, it felt like they were kind of planning for a lot for like this game to be a hit.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't say it wasn't a hit, but I don't think it was maybe the huge game that they were expecting.
It wasn't a smashing success.
No. Anyway, what'd you think about this one? What were your thoughts when you were playing through it?
I enjoyed this game. It's a good hack and slash game. There's the combat feels weighty. It feels good to hit things with the sword. It's challenging enough to make you honest. You can't just go up and just smash buttons. You got to kind of go back, go forth, dodge, block a little bit, use some different moves to clear out some enemies. So you're definitely not just pressing one button the whole time. If you are, you're going to die quite a bit. Has some good special abilities that really were quite strong and useful most of the time.
Yeah.
Loved blasting the horn. The horn was a good one.
Yeah, I love the horn blast.
Love the horn blast. I love me a good horn. That's another Podtimistic thing. A good horn. Just a great time blasting the horn. And then the voice acting was good. The story was fun. The lore, I love it. Very dramatic. Exceptionally dramatic game. Definitely trying to take from, the 2010s. Like, I think a lot of things were influenced by God of War at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
At least as far as this style of game is concerned. And just had some pretty cool, fun moments and visuals. I was actually pretty impressed by just like the design of a lot of the enemies and the world in general, kind of this post-apocalyptic New York, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
With just a lot of small details that made it seem believable and engaging and not just like they plastered, a apocalypse skin over New York City. Like they had some thought put into these worlds that you were traversing through.
Yeah.
Which was good. I found myself quite enjoying this game.
Yeah, totally. I was interested to see what was in this game because I had seen it described as a Zelda-like game for a while, and I was like, I don't know what people are talking about when they're saying that.
Right.
And that was really just a consequence of me having not gotten to like the dungeon part of this game.
Mm-hmm.
And like, to be fair, it does take a while. Like, you have to like do the intro level where like Earth is being invaded, hundreds of years before the actual game takes place.
Yeah.
And then it gets you in there and then you go back to the world and then like you meet up with Volgrim, the like demon man. And then he like gives you the horn. You have to move some people and like do some side quests. And then finally you get to like an actual dungeon. And I think for me, that's when the game sort of like came into itself and was like, oh, I see why people like this.
Yeah.
I think the finesse that you see in Zelda dungeons is here in this game. Just really, really quality stuff of this 3D kind of space where there's a bunch of rooms and it almost plays out like a Metroidvania where a lot of doors are locked and you have to figure out like, okay, where's the ones I can go through and then, follow that down somewhere. Oop, I got locked in a room and there's a guy with a boomerang in here.
Yeah.
If I beat him, then I get the boomerang and now I can, go and do a bunch of other shit now.
But this is a boomerang with like 5 blades on it.
With blades. Yeah, absolutely. But most of the dungeons all played out like that, where in very typical Zelda style, you come into a new place, you can't get into a bunch of areas, and then the game sort of forces you to like figure out how to do it, and then gives you a new item somewhere in there.
Satisfying way to do a game, honestly.
Totally, yeah. And like I think in modern day, you see this applied to most of like the world of a game, right? Like in Jedi Survivor, I think that there are a lot of tendencies in there, and in Darksiders, where there's a bunch of areas that you can't get to initially, and it's sort of inviting you to come back here once you have a different set of skills.
Sure.
But in this game, and I think in Zelda games at large, or at least the ones sort of pre Breath of the Wild, this is the structure of those games that you would see. And I think it works really well. Like I think that there is a really satisfying loop that you can get into there. I was like fine with the combat. Like it wasn't blowing my socks off, but at no point was I having a bad time with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's goes in the camp of just engaging enough.
Yes. Yeah. So that was cool. When Murray had suggested this game, they'd mentioned like, hey, the first hour is kind of a God of War clone. Just like push through if you can.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that they mentioned that because damn, yeah, that is very true. I only had played the first hour and was like, that game was all right.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'd asked Murray to send us in their points about this game. And I had said, hey, do you want to, include any thoughts? Or I'd said, I remember playing this on 360 and playing it on the hardest difficulty for the all caps
gamer score
and having a bad time with the combat. I can imagine this game is pretty tough on the
I would
hardest
think so.
difficulty.
Yeah, I can see that.
They said, if I remember correctly, my copy came with an art book and I was really blown away with the level of art direction in the game. It felt pretty clear that they were building up to a larger franchise, but I haven't touched any of the other games in the series to say if that went well or not. Maybe the height of, quote, just play the first hour and then it gets good, trust me, which I have to agree with. Like, I typically don't say this, but I would call the first hour of this game like approaching bad. Not because it's like dissatisfying or terrible, but it's like really unrepresentative of what the rest of the game is going to be like.
Sure.
And like the rest of the game is good. And so they kind of put a weird foot forward where I think that they were hoping to rely on spectacle in a way that God of War also was relying on at the time. But it kind of, in hindsight, it doesn't age nearly as well.
I'd say it was kind of, I don't know if I'd say bad, but it was just a little dull.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. At least misrepresentative is maybe a better word.
Yeah, absolutely.
How far did you get in this game, by the way?
I got through the first dungeon.
Okay, cool. There's a lot of shit in here. There's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
I think I got through the third dungeon. You get your horse back at some point, and the game really owns after you get your horse.
Get a horse? I need to keep playing this game, I think.
Honestly, it's well worth it. That, weirdly enough, the boss of that area very much plays out like a Shadow of the Colossus boss, where there's like this giant sandworm that you're trying to fight. You have to be on your horse to fight it, and it'll every now and then come out of the sand and you have to shoot it with your gun.
Good horse combat.
Yeah, very, very fun. They actually do make pretty good horse combat because you can like lock onto the enemy without really losing control of your horse all that much, which is very cool. I will say there are so many controls in this game.
There's a lot going on.
There are so many. Every button does something else. There's always like a weird button combo to do another thing.
I was about to say, it's not just every button does something, but like weird button combinations do different things that are just makes no sense. Like there was one that was like L and ZR together does something like, why? What other game does this?
Yeah, no, I was getting pretty blowed up by the controls. Like I had to think of every time I needed to go into like the first person kind of view that you use to throw the boomerang. I was like, how do I do it? How do I go into that mode?
Same. You really need a pro controller for this game. You need some back paddles.
I needed back paddles. I also think like maybe the Joy-Cons are not the place to play this.
No.
It like doesn't control horribly well on there. Not bad, but like the first person stuff, like I was kind of challenged to do that very well.
Yeah, I agree.
But didn't really, again, none of that really detracted.
It didn't ruin it. It just made it a little, felt quirky. Made it feel quirky.
It was much harder to get all the way through. Yeah, this is good. It very much feels like like Murray was saying, I think that the design of it was very considered. I know that like this style of game and this style of art, I don't think has quite come around to being able to be appreciated, at least not by me yet, in the way that like something in 2005, I kind of get some charm off playing some of that stuff.
Sure.
But it's still so mired in sort of the 2010, like, this game is serious for serious gamers and it's really for tough guys and stuff like that. And like, I don't think any of it's like, you know, the worst toxic masculinity shit ever, but like I think it all feels very silly, I think, in hindsight, which it isn't a bad thing, right? I think it's just all kind of ridiculous. But I will say, like Mario's saying, the art style feels very considered. Everything feels like in universe and canonical, and none of it feels disjointed, which is it's a cool thing.
The art was cool. I did like the world that they had created for this game was visually striking and interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely is just big tough guy fights other big tough guys, some who are just more evil and less righteous than this other kind of mean but righteous tough guy that you're playing as.
I love that War is like kind of taking the place of like almost a stringent bureaucrat in this. Like he's like, dude, why was I called here? You aren't following the proper paperwork for the horsemen.
Someone's not doing the right
here.
Protocol right here.
Yeah.
We didn't have a meeting about this.
Which is pretty incredible. And like, of course, there's a reason for that, right? But it's sort of hilarious that he's like, I'm pissed off that we didn't go through the proper channels to make this happen.
War's all about the rules, man. The rules of war.
Let's see what else about this game. I think every dungeon sort of introduces like a new mechanic, like we were saying, and I think that's really cool. It takes a lot of like ingenuity to figure out like what is one thing that we can introduce here that will still make this game fun, and we can like layer onto itself, because like most of them are used in other dungeons, right? Like the little boomerang thing is used a lot. You use the horse after you get that. There's like this little like time like chrono thing you get from Samael where like if you hit something with your boomerang, these like little time blobs, then time slows down a bit. So like if you have a door that closes really quickly, you can hit it and then run and you'll get under there before it closes. That sort of stuff, it's pretty cool. I like that a lot. I didn't get to it, but I also saw the portal stuff, which is pretty neat.
They threw the kitchen sink in this game, which I appreciated.
Which is also surprising. When did Portal 1 come out? 2007. Okay, yeah. Well, I was going to say it felt like it was around the same time, but I guess that's 3 years later. They could have been taking some inspiration there.
Absolutely. That was a great game. Is it really that long since Portal 1 came out? God.
Yeah, 2007. Portal 2 was 2011. Portal 2 feels like wildly recent, but apparently not.
Sure ain't.
Phenomenal games. Those ones are astounding. Let's see. Do you have anything else to say about Darksiders? I enjoyed this one quite a bit.
I was really pleasantly surprised by this. I had heard about this game. I always thought the idea of playing as a Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse was a cool way to make a game setting, right? It delivered. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. A much bigger game, and I will say, like, this one was reviewed pretty well at the time, and so like I think the good games of it all is just like what parts of this have aged well and not aged well. And I think some of the stuff that was, being heralded at the time of like, this is why this game is good, sort of the cinematic parts of it and the combat systems. I don't know that everything there has aged particularly incredibly, but like the level design and the dungeon design has just like, it feels incredibly fresh still.
Yeah, the bones of the game have aged well. Maybe not like not like the extra bits, but the parts that are not just the gameplay itself. Yeah, maybe haven't aged as well.
Which, like, if you're going to choose something, I would definitely choose the architecture and the base part of the game, because like that stuff, I think it's pretty ageless, right? Like I think that'll be good in 5 years, it'll be good in 10, unless somebody comes along and really blows the Ocarina of Time style of Zelda game out of the water or whatever.
There you go.
Anyway, gaming,
what a thing. These games.
Well, cool. Thanks for your suggestion, Murray. This is a cool one. Played a lot of this game.
Yeah, that was fun.
Hello, gamers and friends and non-gamers too. Welcome to the outro. It's me, your friend Chase, and I'm here to guide you through. If you want to talk to us on the internet or see what games we've covered or suggest a game, you can do that at podtimism.com. I realized there was a handful of episodes that didn't have the games mentioned, which is where our website is pulling from as a data source to like see what games we've played. So I'm running through those last few to really round out what games we've played. So you should be able to search almost our entire backlog at this point.
Kudos to you, Chase, for doing that.
Oh yeah, no, it's fine. It's just a process of skipping through our old episodes and trying to figure out what game we're talking about at any given moment. It's a lot of Hades and Rocket League, as it turns out.
You're welcome on that one.
Honestly, it makes for a lot easier of a process because I'm like, yes, David is still playing Rocket League. Okay, still playing Hades. And then I'm like, what the fuck is Trial of Fire? When did I play that game? I have no memory of this.
You always come out with the deep cuts.
Yeah, to my own demise, apparently.
Yeah.
Let's see. So yeah, all that's at podtimism.com. If you want to help out the show, there's a couple things you can do. One is review it on your podcatcher of choice, Apple Podcast or Spotify or anything like that. Those really do help the show. It pushes our pod out to people and will say, hey, maybe you like this pod, maybe this one too, which is helpful for all that algorithm stuff, you know?
Algo.
I don't know what that algo do, but... The much more effective way is to show it to a friend and say, hey, I know you like podcasts and video games and you like to feel good about those things and not dunk on Redfall for 3 hours straight or whatever every other podcast is doing right now. So maybe check this one out. That's much more helpful thing to do.
Absolutely.
Just real quick, one thing. Scout out in two forms. One, Scout, thank you for your work on our podcast art. She absolutely crushed it and continues to crush it. And also, congratulations to Scout on launching her new podcast with Jill. Paws and Claws, a good podcast.
Ooh.
This is a podcast where Jill and Scout read through the Warrior Cats books and summarize their experience with it. And it's already incredible. So if that at all sounds interesting to you, check it out. I know nothing about Warrior Cats, so like I'm having a great time.
I like the name.
Yeah, no, it's very fun. Honestly, you've played Cattails. You know what it's about.
A warrior cat. I've also played as a Khajiit before in Skyrim. Also a warrior cat.
Yeah. I didn't know this, but apparently the Cattails game was originally using a lot of in-universe lore from the Warrior Cats like property.
No shit.
And then I think they got like a little cheeky lawsuit.
Just a little cease and desist sent over here, a little cheeky one.
As a little treat, but they sanded off all the Warrior Cats IP and then just made their own game.
Well, I mean, if it's like Cattails, I would be a fan.
Yeah, no, it's very fun. It's very ridiculous. Like, you know, it's a great time. So definitely recommend giving that a look if you have any interest. Like I said, I don't know anything about this, and I'm having a great time. It's a fun ride. So congrats on that, Scout. Let's see. Also, thank you, listener, for listening to this podcast. We appreciate you being here. We certainly don't take your listenership for granted. I missed making this podcast when we didn't do it. And so I'm glad that there's people out there who will support that effort in some way or another. So yeah, thank you for listening. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It really means a lot to both of us.
Dave, do you have any gaming wisdom to leave us off with tonight?
I do. You know, you may not like it. You may not like it, but there's a reason that there are rules and regulations in place. It may keep you from putting in a swimming pool in your backyard. It may keep you from, I don't know, being able to have the credentials to pursue the dream of your choice, the job of your choice, right? But you know that it's all there for a reason. Specifically to make sure that the apocalypse doesn't accidentally happen, right? Trust in the rules, unless they're bullshit, but trust in the rules and the regulations.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes, not always, they're there for a good reason.
And also, like, if you're one of the four horsemen, like, make sure everything's going through the proper channels, dude. Sometimes the heaven and hell and the Charred Council are trying to get fucky with you. You need to be careful.
Yeah, you really gotta double and triple check those documents, right? In triplicate, please.
Your W-2 is malformed. It says you are an independent contractor, but you're not.
Oh no! And now the Charred Council's coming after me. Damn.
That's kind of what it feels like, honestly. The IRS, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to guess how much you owe this year?"
We know.
Hope
you get it right.
I'm not going to tell you. If you don't, sorry, it's jail time.
Also, if you do it wrong and you say that we owe you less than we do, we're not going to say. Isn't that funny? Bastards.
Yeah, it might as well be the Charred Council, man. That's essentially what's
they
going
are
on.
the American Charred Council. It's true. It's true. They sit in their cave underneath the ground. Also, why does all the Charred Council look like the cave, the lion cave from Aladdin?
From Aladdin, yeah, absolutely.
Right?
It totally looks like the big, the like tiger head or something.
Yep. Yep. The Cave of Wonders. That's it.
I'm with you, man.
First thing I thought.
Anyway, thank you, gamers. Thank you for listening to this episode. We will talk to you next week.
Yep.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.